other than that. I mean, I get a lot of resistance on my path. I do. Some of it really, really sucks, but you know what? I'm not a paraplegic in a wheelchair that needs to blow in a straw just to get around the block. And I include that into my understanding of my life. I don't censor it so I can be a martyr. There are a lot of people that have it a lot, and I mean a lot, worse than I do. Different types of interference in their life. I have a different type of resistance. But I'm not, like I said, blowing in a straw. I'm not somebody that has chronic debilitating back pain where I can't even stand up and I have trouble falling asleep because of that. There are people that have it worse than you. The girl that I showed you in the beginning of the next phase video, I'm not her. Why would I set that video up that way? I wanted you people to see how quickly you get emotional. And then you were emotional, you wanted to defend her, and right away did you point your finger at the Illuminati, forgetting about the beam in your eye. I mean, what is it you think you're going to do? Overcome them with wrong-mindedness? Without knowledge? How long would it take before you would do the same thing they're doing, whether you think you would right now or not? If you actually overcame that and became the new controllers of a hierarchy, how long would it be before you decided that because you're in control, you have to make some decisions about humanity? And don't think you would avoid the all-seeing eye. If you rose up to that level, you'd have a little meeting. You point your finger and you don't know what you're pointing at. If I had to paint a picture of collective humanity, a giant portrait, it would be billions of people all with their arms extended outward pointing at somebody else. That's the image of cancer. The sound of cancer is noise. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. The majority of people, if you say black, they say white. When their integrity is on the line, they defend lies. It's a knee-jerk reaction based upon everything that they've been fed through the media and school. It's no one's fault, but it needs to be understood. Anyway, the reason that none of you know anything is because those in the know don't know how to tell you. And they lack the patience. This is the crucial thing, because they are not motivated by spirit yet. They don't have the patience. So they become overwhelmed. Let me give you an idea of what I mean by that. Part of my path has given me this perspective. If I looked outside of my path for the answers, I could never help you in the way that I'm helping you now. Just like if you try to memorize my path, you can't help anybody. So why do I even bother talking to you? Because it's not my path that matters. It's showing you how I have taken from my path, so that you begin to do the same thing for yourself. I remember when I was 19 and I had a really busy semester in college and had all these final exams, and I'd actually skipped a lot of the classes in human physiology. This was going to be our biggest exam, the final exam for human physiology. 5 chapters. And if you're thinking, oh, 5 chapters is easy, well, this isn't just memorizing. When you get up to the level we were at, you have to be able to assimilate. You have to be able to put 2 and 2 together. You're not going to cut it just by memorizing. So studying involves going through that process of linking things. I didn't even begin to study. I was blowing that off because I was doing other things. And as a pre-medical student, you're very concerned about your grades. So I was freaking out. I'd done very well up to that point. The exam was the next day. I sit down, it's like 2 in the afternoon, and I look at the outline for what I need to know. I have an inch thick of handouts, I'm not going to exaggerate that and say it was 3 inches. It was about an inch. 5 chapters. And I look at the outline, 2-page outline of what I need to know. The whole thing looked like Chinese. All of it. I didn't understand any of it. And I knew I had to know it the next morning. I tried opening up the book and reading, and I was so anxious I'd read a paragraph and forget what I just read. I'd have to reread it and then read it again. I was looking at everything. I went through all the handouts one by one. And I was looking at everything at once in a state of anxiety. I was overwhelmed. I went into the other room where my dad was, and he's a professor but not in science, so he didn't understand it either. But I handed him the outline in a panic. I said, "Dad, this is too much. I fucked up. The whole semester is a failure. I can't do it." And he looked at it, and he looked at me. He handed it right back to me. He says, "What can you do?" "What do you mean?" He said, "What can you do? You can only do what you can do. All you can do is the best that you can do. Nobody can ever ask you to do more than your best effort. You're in a situation, you can't change that now. So you can either collapse and look at the whole thing at once, or you can take it one step at a time. Better you learn one chapter well than look at all 5 chapters and all the handouts at once and retain nothing. Slow down, calm down, take it one step at a time." I said, "All right." So I went back to the chair and I put earplugs in, I put the outline out of sight, and I turned to page 1, I slowed down and forgot about the exam and just read it like I wanted to read it, slowly. And I began reading. At 2:30 in the morning, I'd gotten through all of the chapters, all of the handouts, and I grabbed that outline and looked at it again. And I went down the list. One by one, I realized I knew everything on the outline. By the time I got to the end of the outline, I was freaking out. I knew it all. And I had about 90% recall the next day. I jumped out of my chair and woke my dad up. I'm like, "Dad, I know it! I know it!" He opens his eyes, he looks at me, he says, "Yeah, I knew you would. Go to bed." Why did he know I would? He already had that particular wisdom. I acquired that wisdom by going through the path. He couldn't do it for me. I could have either trusted his advice or not. Same thing as what I told you about how you cannot focus on whether you will fail or succeed, you see. How would I come to that conclusion? By experiences in my life, my path, like I just explained now, you see. Extraction of meaning through experience and walking your own path. This isn't an exam, what's going on in the world, but it is the same. You have to start recognizing how things are different but the same. Pattern recognition, the energy, the understanding, the wisdom of that has helped me with what I'm doing now. It is the same in many ways. That is where true knowledge is. I'd learned that previously too in another way about time. In 1st grade, at least when I was a kid, we had lunch tickets. I don't know what they do now, but we had paper punchable lunch tickets. And so every week, one kid in class would be designated the one to hand out the lunch tickets. So me and some of my friends had this contest. How fast could we get the lunch tickets handed out to everybody in class, right? So they did their thing, and they all had their time. Then my week came up. The first day, I was all raring to go, and as soon as I got those lunch tickets, boom, I'm just flipping through them, looking for people, trying to find them as fast as I can. They're running over to their desk, looking for the next person, running over to their desk. And after that, I beat the time. I had the record time. The second day I did it, I was within like 10 seconds of the first day. But because I'd already had the time and I thought, well, gosh, I'm going fast, it occurred within me to wonder about something.